Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Military Mondays. If you and I don't know each other, I would love to get to know you, especially if you are a veteran business owner or the spouse of a veteran or currently serving military member. I would love to have a conversation with you and maybe feature you on a Military Mondays. But for those of you who don't know who I am a retired major from the Air Force. And I absolutely loved serving, but not my entire career. And if you want to learn more, you're going to have to go back and watch past episodes of my Military Mondays and learn about my story, because I was active duty, I was a spouse, and I was a reservist. And I guess technically I was a child of a veteran too, because my dad served. So I served on all sides of the military, and you'll have to go watch the past shows to figure out why Brenda served on all four sides of the military. So with that, I want to welcome you to today's episode of Military Mondays with my very good friend that I just met recently through Polka Dot Powerhouse Connection. And Kalisha is amazing, and her story, when I talked to her, I was like, oh my God, we need to share her story, because so many of you, if you're serving currently, you need to learn about what she does. And if you've already served and you don't have a disability rating, or you got a disability rating of 0 or like 10%, like I did, and you know that it should be higher, you should know Kalisha. So welcome to the show today, Kalisha.
Thank you, Brenda. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here today and to share how important it is to understand exactly how to get your ratings, and also what you need to do to just continue to make sure that if you are on active duty, or even if you're just in reserve, National Guard, what you need to do to make sure that when you are ready to transition out of the military, that you have everything that you need in order to get the disability that you deserve.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being here. So let's start first with your military career, and we'll just leave it at that. And then we'll get to the juicy stuff. But I do have to tell our viewers that Kalisha does have a special. So you're going to have to stay till the end. So I'm going to tease it out a little bit. You do have to stay till the end to learn what her special offer is. But so tell us a little bit about your experience in the Army, and how you ended up retiring.
So actually, I started out just like you. You know, that's one of the things that we do have in common, is the fact that I did start out as a military brat, and then I joined the military at 23. Went to basic, and I got hurt in basic. I went to Fort Jackson, also known as Relaxing Jackson, or the powerhouse of stress fractures. So I got hurt, and instead of getting put on con leave, I ended up actually, training. Took a couple times to pass the final PT test to leave, and I was on crutches majority of my time in basic. So then I get to AIT. And then AIT, I want to say about 2-3 weeks in, I fell again. And that's when they found out that I had a stress fracture that wasn't healed properly. So I went to the naval base.
I was going to say, let's go back a little bit, because I want to tease out this story, because I know the whole story. And I think there's a lot of people that are like you, Kalisha, that when you were in training, you toughed it out and you did not want to go to the doctor, because why?
So, especially if you are a military brat, like you grew up in the military, or just been around anybody that's been in the military, you know the stigma of being like a sick call ranger. So I toughed it out as long as I could. I tried to hide it. Like, oh, I'm not hurt. I mean, of course, everybody's seen me fall flat on my face, but I just didn't want to be that soldier that always went to sick call, that always had an excuse of why I couldn't run on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, or why I couldn't wear my gear, or just look like the weakest link. So I tried my best to just continue to kind of like, oh, I'm okay. I got this. I'm a soldier, right? I'm a soldier on. Well, yeah, soldiering on is not always the best thing when you're really in pain. And it kind of put me in a predicament that I'm in now, because whereas mostly everybody retires after 20 years, I medically retired after 1 year, 10 months, and 11 days.
So let's talk about that, because I also know the story there. And you were out processing, and you were because you are a military brat, you were very discouraged that you were let out after such a short period of time, because you really wanted to retire.
Yes.
It was at your out processing because you really wanted that flag, and at the out processing.
Yes, I really wanted my flag. I wanted to do my 20 years, maybe even more than 20 years. But I wanted to earn my retirement. And, so when I got out and I went to out process, I looked at the flag and the certificate of appreciation and everything on the wall. And I said, I really wish I could have gotten one of those. And the lady that was transitioning me out, that was doing my paperwork, she said, you are going to get one of those. You need to go get your retiree ID. And so at that point, I was shocked, because I'm like, I haven't done nothing, like I've only done 1 year, 10 months, and 11 days. I haven't even met half of my contract. But it was a blessing. I did receive my flag. I received my retirement orders. I received my certificate of appreciation signed by Barack Obama. My certificate of retirement signed by General Ordinero. It was amazing that I still received what I wanted to receive, and I didn't do 20 years to receive it.
So let's talk about that experience and why that led to you really continuing your service today, just not wearing the uniform.
So when I got out and I medically retired out, I got 40% from DOD, and I got 60% from the VA. And then what I decided to do was I decided to look into my own medical records, look into what my ratings were, self-analyze myself, go to doctor's appointments like I'm supposed to, listen to what they say, and then double back and check my own medical records to see if what they're telling me is what they're putting in the system. So after I did that, I said, well, they say I'm diagnosed with this, but it's not on my sheet. So I started to add things to my claim form. I did my research, and I started to say, okay, well, this needs to be added because they said I have this, and there's documents to say that I have this, so let's add it. So over the years, I fought hard to get all the way to where I am now, and that's at 100% total and permanent. I do have the individual unemployability attached to it as well. But it took for me, myself, to truly go through my medical records, highlight, cross-reference, and file the claim myself and fight for myself in order to get what I knew I deserved, and so once I started doing that, I said, okay, I could really help other people. So then I applied for a position here at Fort Bliss to work under the Transition Assistance Program as a VA benefit advisor. So then I got certified as a VA benefit advisor. I learned pretty much what I already knew, but it was nice to learn it and now be like, huh, so I've been doing this on my own for so many years, and now I learned that what I've been doing is the correct thing to do. So let me help other soldiers. So I stayed with the company for a year, and then I went into private practice. More so because what I found out is that a lot of wartime veterans, and I'm talking Vietnam, Korean War veterans, Gulf War veterans, Desert Storm, Desert Shield, even OEF and OIF, you know, a lot of them feel like they're not privy to disability compensation because they didn't have a major or catastrophic incident or injury that happened to them. And so I started advertising and looking for especially wartime veterans, and I came across one. And he is actually a Bronze Star medalist from Vietnam who has never been identified as a Bronze Star medalist, but it is on his DD 214 that he is a Bronze Star medalist. He's never filed a claim before. And so his wife reached out to me and I helped him get his claim form started. You know, I advocated for him. I sent him to his doctor's appointment. I explained every document that the VA sent him to make sure that he understood it. Because it's one thing to read it, it's another thing to understand it. And so it was more like a very personal and private interaction. And I did all that, and his very first disability claim was 60%. You know, of course, he doesn't have a lot wrong with him, but for what he does and what he's entitled to as a person who laid their life on the line for this country and a Bronze Star medalist, 60% for him, he was, I mean, over the moon excited. You know, he still calls me and say, they're still sending me money. They're still sending me money. Are they supposed to still send me money? You know? And so they actually talked, meaning him and his wife, actually kind of persuaded me to open my own business, to help soldiers, to help spouses, to help actually just anybody who is struggling to understand how to navigate the healthcare system. Especially veterans though, because a lot of us, you know, we have that mojo, like how I did. Oh, I'm not going to go to the doctor. I'm not going to worry about this. I don't need to file a claim. And then when you're like old and you know, hurting, and you're saying like, oh, my back hurts. And then you start thinking like, well, I did carry a lot of gear back in the day, you know, it's time to file a claim. So it's better to get it on your way out the door. But even if you don't, a lot of people feel that because they've been out for so many years that they can't file a claim. And so I use the story of my Vietnam veteran because think about how long ago Vietnam was. Yeah. And he had never filed a claim. Yes, he goes to the VA. Anybody, if you're a veteran, you can go to the VA. But that does not mean that, you know, you don't deserve a portion of disability, you know. So I think it's very important that, you know, I started a company that truly helps veterans understand their true entitlements and, you know, get those entitlements while the getting is good, you know, because otherwise there's free money out there. You know, we're allocated that money every year, you know, and therefore you should definitely get what you deserve. And a lot of times, you know, I love the VA. And the truth is that a lot of times they're either backlogged or they're understaffed or understrength. And so a lot of times, you know, when you file your claim, it goes through the process. But if you really take time and you send that information in and highlight that section to say, okay, so this is why I'm filing for example, back pain, or because in 2012, they told me that I needed to have surgery because I had a slip disc or something, well, here's the information on that, you can tie that to my back pain. One thing I never guarantee anybody is 100%, because I had to work my way up to 100%. But one thing I do I can guarantee through my company is that you will get a personalized experience and understanding of what it truly means to file a disability claim. What every line by line, if you want to go line by line, what every line by line of those letters being sent to you mean. Because most of the time, the VA sends so much information that nobody reads it.
It's sort of like a mortgage. I was going to say it's sort of like a mortgage, that pages and pages.
Yes.
Skim. And that's skim.
And then a lot of times you're skimming, but you're looking for what you think that you need to look for instead of what you need to really look for. So I like to take that pressure off of people's hands and say, hey, if you sign this release form, me and my company will do the digging for you. We'll do, and then we'll meet back together, give you your findings, tell you whether or not, in my professional opinion, you should even go for this, or if you need to go get more documentation to help build your claim, because that's another thing. If you don't have documentation of what you're trying to file your disability for, it's very hard to file for that disability, because that's what the VA uses. They go off of your medical records, and we're all humans. We all make human errors. Like I will tell you, I had to fight hard for where I am now in my own case. And a lot of that was just oversight. And so now I'm like, oh, no, you're not going to oversee anything anymore. You're going to look at this and look, it's right here, it's highlighted, and I make sure I use a really good highlighter, like a pink or a blue, because you can't say you missed it. And even when you scan it in on pink, it still comes up pink, right? So yellow doesn't always work, because when you scan it in, it kind of like fades, and then they can say, oh, I didn't see it. But no, you can see pink and blue. So, so I truly believe that there's a lot of veterans out there that can use my service. There's a lot of veterans out there who could even if you just wanted to, schedule an appointment to learn more, to get training on exactly like what you need to do. I'm all for that. You can schedule either a one-on-one, or you can schedule a training, and then you can utilize your training to help other people. The goal that I have when it comes to this portion of my company is to be a blessing so that somebody else can be a blessing to someone else, and just continue going and continue helping people get basically what they deserve, because it's a battle, and a lot of people don't have the time or the patience, which is why most people don't even go further in filing their claims, because they get so frustrated and they're like, forget it, like, fine. I always tell people something is better than nothing. So even if you get 10%, it's okay, because you're gonna age. That disability is more than likely going to get worse as you age. So let that disability climb with your age, so and that's really what I did over the years. I've let my disability rating climb with my age, and there's so many benefits that comes with disability ratings that most people don't know, because they weren't told. Because when you're transitioning out, you're trying to get out of the military, you ain't thinking about no disability compensation right out the gate. You're going to do what your VA advisor tells you to do, file your claim, get your medical records, but you're not really thinking about all of that. And a lot of times I've met so many, especially officers, I've met a lot of officers who just feel like they just don't deserve it. And I always say, did you lace your boots up? Did you get up at 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock sometimes in the morning? Have you ever had to spend nights away from your family? Months, years away from your family? I'm pretty sure you deserve it, you know. So I just try to do my part in making sure that those who deserve it get what they deserve. And then the spouses, same thing. A lot of spouses have no idea what they're entitled to. You know, if your spouse has passed away, and they passed away from a service-connected disability, guess what? There's some entitlements there that you could possibly be entitled to. And most of the time, especially if your spouse got out like over 10 years ago, you're not gonna know, because back then the VA wasn't, as let me see, what's the good word I want to use? I don't want to say diverse, but as easily open and accessible. There we go.
Yeah.
Like it is now,
Yep.
but even then, a lot of spouses, they don't understand it. If you didn't grow up in a military household and you married into the military, you're not going to understand it like, you and I would, who grew up in a household, joined the military, then got married in the military, and then got out. And so I like to do my due diligence as well when it comes to those spouses who are in need of assistance and don't know where to go, because most of the time the soldier doesn't have that conversation with them. There's a lot that comes when you are transitioning out, that you need to have those conversations with your spouses. Even when it comes to burial benefits. I can't tell you how many times people have came to my company, or funeral homes have called me asking, hey, can you talk to my client, because they're kind of confused on burial benefits. They don't know where to go. The spouse didn't tell them much about it. And so it's a lot of conversations that are being neglected, that my company is very, like, we work hard to make sure that those conversations are being had, being understood, and the cases are being taken care of.
Awesome. We could talk for hours on this. And I might have you back on the show to expand more. But what words of wisdom or what words of advice would you have to maybe somebody who's getting ready to separate right now, or for what you do, period, dot, in general? What do you recommend people who are currently serving or just got out? What do you recommend they do?
I recommend that you get your medical records. Go to the doctor. Go to the doctor, go to the doctor, go to the doctor. Doctors are paid millions and millions, and insurance are paid even more for you to go to the doctor. So go to the doctor. Don't wait until things are worse and then want to go. If you are transitioning out, now is your time. Within your last 6 months, 3 to 6 months, now's your time to go to the doctor for everything. Documents. Have all of your documents. If you've ever been seen at an outside doctor, meaning that TRICARE or TriWest, if you're already a veteran, have sent you to an outside doctor, after every appointment, ask for a visit summary. Get a visit summary after every appointment. And then every 3 to 6 months, request your medical records from those outside doctors. Upload it into your My Healthy Vet system so that your VA doctors have the information. There's so many different ways now to keep all of your doctors connected. If you're like me, I hate repeating myself from one doctor to the next. So normally when they send me to a new doctor and they send the letter in the mail and say, this is the doctor you're going to go see, I normally go ahead and fax in my medical records. So by the time I get to you, you should already know what I'm coming to see you for. But if I had one word to choose, it would be, let me see, self. Take care of self. If you're taking care of yourself, then you will get what is deserved, what is needed, and you'll be good. You really would, and your family will be good. And if you're worried about not needing to file a disability compensation claim, don't do it for you, do it for your family.
Yeah.
My spouse now has extra education benefits because I didn't just do it for me, but I did it for my family.
Yep. Awesome. And so I said you had a special at the end, but we're not going to give it away yet. We're not going to tell them what it is just yet.
Okay.
So what do you think you learned, the skills you learned in the service that make you, obviously learning about VA and that, but what skills did you learn in the service that make you a successful business owner today? Why would somebody who's served even consider being a business owner?
For me, helping others, selfless service, looking outside of just myself, looking at what I can do to better America. That's one of the things. Leadership, just being able to lead soldiers into a better understanding of veteran affairs. And then the last one I would say would be grit.
Yeah. Grit can hurt you though. You had too much grit.
it can, so with grit comes balance. So trying, because a lot of time that determination, that grit that you have in the military, you carry that outside into your personal life. And I feel like having that grit, not giving up, not, throwing in the towel, has really helped me to be a business owner because of the simple fact that I know that, it's going to be hard. It's never going to be easy. No, nothing's easy.
Yeah.
When you stand and you raise your right hand and you say the oath of enlistment, you're not thinking about everything that comes with you just giving that oath, right?
Yeah.
You're just thinking, okay, I'm going into the military. It's probably the best thing for me. I'm going to give this oath, and there you go. But you don't really think about everything that comes into it until you're in it. Yeah. And then it's like, okay, well, where do I go? What do I do? And so having that grit to and balance to know when you're there, stay there. You don't have to try to work your way up too fast to where you miss a couple steps in between.
Awesome. So I want to circle back around before we give the offer. You talked about as a veteran, you can go to VA. And I think there's a lot of veterans out there that don't realize that they can go to the VA if they don't have a service connected. Like a lot of veterans think in order to go to the VA, they've got to have a service connected disability to go. So I want to circle back around to that for just a minute and have you share just real quick that the VA is there and what they do provide.
So yes, the VA is there. And just because you do not have a service-connected disability does not mean that you are not privy to what the VA has. Now, there is a difference in having a dishonorable discharge and being
Yes.
able to use VA benefits. But what I always tell people is go on va.gov. And it'll tell you everything that you need to know. The healthcare system is there. There are different tiers that comes with the healthcare system. A lot of times, it's based on income, and sometimes it's not. But the best way to find out if you have a service-connected disability is to go to the VA and see a VA doctor, especially mental health. Especially mental health. That is one area where most people don't like to talk about it, but it's true. I haven't met one veteran that literally does not have some form of anxiety, depression, or PTSD from the military. And you don't know until the triggers are there. But it's one thing to see them and get help than it is to see them and ignore them. So if you don't go to the VA for nothing else, you can go to the VA for mental health. And I encourage veterans to go to the VA for mental health. Utilize the VA. It's there because we're here, and therefore, no matter what the circumstances are, no matter whether you are service connected, disabled, no matter if you served 90 days or if you served 20 plus years, 30 plus years, no matter what, every veteran should utilize the VA at some point, even if you're just going for your annual checkups. Let that annual checkup be that one time that you go and you have that conversation, because then you never know what diagnoses are going to come out of those visits that in fact are service connected.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on. So now we will clue people in on your special offer.
So I do offer free consultations, but also for the month of January, your first session, if you actually say and let me know that you were a part of Military Mondays with myself and Brenda, then you will get your actual sitting fee. So your appointment fee will be waived for your first session with me.
Awesome. That's a huge deal. So if you're watching this and you're a veteran, please take advantage of just sitting down with her and figuring out if you're rated the way you should be, because you never know. And if you're watching this and you're part of my circle of influence and you're not a veteran, please do me a favor and like and share this with your network, because there are people out there, there are veterans out there that need to hear this and need to take advantage of Kalicia's offer for January. So that's, for those who are watching, that's January 2022. Because this is going to be out on YouTube. So if you're watching this 5-6 years from now, you can always reach out to her. I'm sure if you reach out to her and say you saw her on Military Mondays, I'm sure she'll have something, an offer for you. But we are talking about January 2022. So if you're a veteran or know a veteran, please pass this interview along to them and help them out, because they have served, and many of them feel like they don't deserve, or they feel like they do deserve it, but they haven't figured out how to get what they deserve. They know they've been disabled, and the VA, when they got out, gave them a 0 or a 10 or even a 20%, and they have a much higher disability that they should be receiving. So please pass this along. I appreciate every single one of you for watching Military Mondays. I look forward to having any of you that are veterans or spouses that are business owners, on the show. So reach out to me, go to militarymondays.info. So Military Mondays with an S.info. You can watch past episodes of amazing interviews with other veteran business owners, or you can apply to be interviewed also on my show. So with that, Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, Kalisha, for being on today. Thank you for what you do for the veteran community and even for those that are currently serving, even so she said veterans, but even if you're currently serving and you're getting ready to get out, you still need to meet with her so that she can help you get from day one, right out of the gates, the right disability rating. So with that, thank you.
You're very welcome. And I do want to say, I forgot to say, this is a global company. So we don't have to meet face to face. Once you go onto the website and you book it, you'll actually receive a Zoom link. So you do not have to be where I am right now in order to get it done. You can be stationed anywhere in the world and we can still take care of you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing all of you next Monday on Military Mondays. Bye, everyone.
Bye.